We will begin shortly, so may we kindly invite everyone to please take your seats. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jessica Cheam. I'm the chair of the board of EB Impact, a Singapore-registered charity delivering youth and education programs, and also founder and managing director of EcoBusiness. We are Asia's leading media and advisory platform for sustainable development. And I'm extremely delighted to be joining you here at the United Nations in this beautiful building this morning to have a really important conversation. I'm joined by some distinguished experts this morning on this session, which is the life cycle approaches to sustainability, and I'm going to introduce them. I have with me Mr. Jitti Mungkalasiri, Technology and Information Institute for Sustainable Development, as well as to my left, Mr. Llorenç, Mila Canals, United Nations Environment Programme, as well as Mr. Pongsak Padungkarn, the Vice President at Huhtamaki Representative. I'd just like to set the stage a little for this conversation. I think we've heard about the challenge that faces us here in this region, and we know enough about the problems. But we really want to focus on solutions. And I'm going to just start with the show of hands. How many of you here have been to a landfill before? Okay, this is quite an engaged group, so more than half, and that's amazing. Because one of the things that we did at EcoBusiness in this last year is that we launched a new impact documentary called Wasted. And we had spent the last year going from country to country in Asia, filming the problems and the solutions. And in every single country where we visited landfills, it's actually a very visceral and emotional experience to connect to the mountain of waste that we see. And I think the previous opening speaker had said, waste is a human invention, and that is true. And if we think about that, nature has completely designed out waste, but it's in this modern era that we've got this problem on our hand, and that waste is actually a result of poor design and overproduction, and there are many ways that we can solve for this. Life cycle thinking and life cycle approaches is key to this. It calls on us to look beyond the traditional focus on production and manufacturing processes to include all stages from the life of any product. So in today's discussion, we want to delve into how life cycle approaches to sustainability are crucial to address the plastic pollution crisis, as highlighted in the UN Environment Resolutions, and specifically, how can we identify critical intervention points, promote sustainable production and consumption patterns, and to implement effective strategies to mitigate plastic pollution. So with this in mind, I would like to invite our first speaker, Jitti, to share a little bit with us, because you work with the Thai government very closely, providing technical support. How do you see life cycle thinking being adopted into national policies and in turn being adopted into industry as well?
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you very much for inviting us to join very precious place like this. I'm on behalf of I'm a kind of a researcher who working for Thai government. And your questions mentioned about how could we integrate the idea of LCT, which comes from life cycle thinking, to the policies. We are implement such kind of activities, I think almost a decade. We are start from the cleaner production at the beginning, and at the end, people say that, okay, cleaner production is not enough, so we have to go further. And then the LCD concept is coming. And I do believe that when we mention on lifecycle thinking concept, it's one of the best solutions, in my opinion. We start from the extraction of the resources, productions, use phase, disposal, and for sure, right now, the circular economy is a hot issue right now. So everything is in the LCT concept. And we do understand that if, as a government, if we are not managed from the beginning until the end, we cannot resolve anything. So I think this is the way that our colleague, which is Thai government, try to input or integrate this LCT in each. I think almost every ministry integrates such kind of idea in the policies, whether it's come from Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Industries, even Ministry of Energies. They try to implement such kind of ideas. And I would like to say that we have a lot of progress in the last 5 years. I think it's great. And even in the SCP, which is a Sustainable Consumption Production Roadmap in Thailand, we mentioned LCT as well in the policy. So this is a good starting point. And I think for the further questions, maybe we'll come back later and let other speakers explain a little bit on the topics. Right.
Perhaps while you're talking about the Thai government policies, what has been your biggest success story in LCT?
I think that we have implemented very big, two very big policies in Thailand. One is the clean public procurement. We implemented the GPP in Thailand almost 10 years. And right now, we identify more than 1,500 products that government should propose a GPP, and the amount of their budget is increasing every year. I think it's a good point. And every product that we are mentioned in the list apply the idea of the LCT as well. I think it's one important policy for Thailand. Another one, and in the last 5 years, we try to implement the eco-efficiency concept. The eco-efficiency concept, we use LCT, we use the LCA, we monitor the efficiency in terms of the environmental and economic aspect as well. And we monitor every state enterprise in Thailand. And it worked very well because of each state enterprise try to be better in terms of financials and resource use or consumption. So I think it's great. It's two big policy right now in Thailand.
Thank you very much for sharing those two policies. Llorenç, I want to come to you. You work in this intersection of science and research and how you implement your findings into policy as well as business practices. Can you share a little bit more about how LCA methodologies can be further refined or adopted to help solve the plastics problem that we see today?
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the question and for being here. So definitely, I think perhaps one of the key elements is the awareness raising and ensuring that decision makers, policymakers are aware of the importance of having this life cycle perspective. And in the end, I mean, also kind of life cycle approaches, this is just an umbrella term. It's bringing in those tools that help implement a systems perspective. I loved a sentence that you just said in the opening when you say waste is the result of poor design. Well, actually, environmental impacts are a result of poor design. There's no way of doing things without generating an impact, but we can generate more or less. And it's about getting the responsibility of those who are designing the products and putting them in the market, for them to take the responsibility of what happens with these products in the market, but also for the policymakers, because at the end of the day, also, depending on how they design the policies, they can incorporate much more these potential issues that happen through the life cycle of products and systems. So first is generating this awareness, and that's also something that from UNEP in the last 20 years, through the Life Cycle Initiative, we've been promoting the thinking, the life cycle thinking, bringing in more of this concept into both policymakers and decision makers in businesses. But then you also mentioned about, well, and developing the methodology, etc. That's the other big thing. One thing is the awareness and having policymakers that know about the importance of life cycle approaches, but also decision makers. It's one thing that they know of this importance, but then it's also working on the enabling conditions, and that really generates a lot. Life cycle approaches, and in specific life cycle assessment, we will probably hear much more about it during the day. It requires a lot of data, and it requires capabilities. It requires capacity to understand and to implement these tools. So working on ensuring that there is capacity worldwide to implement the tools, that there is access to data, that there is access to methods. These are also important elements that we've also been working on.
That's really interesting. If I were to ask you to rank between 1 to 10, where you think the state of the world is right now in terms of adopting LCA methods, where would you put us?
It's hard to put numbers. I think we've advanced massively. The fact that, particularly in the United Nations Environment Assembly, since the 4th session, I would say, we regularly see life cycle approaches mentioned in UNEA resolutions. That is putting life cycle thinking at the highest level in terms of environmental policy. So definitely it has to be more than a 5. But then if we think on actually how we are at in terms of implementing it, that's still taking. So I would say, maybe 5.5 to be positive. We're kind of getting there, but we really have a long way to go.
Okay, so a pass, but not excellent.
A pass.
So we have a lot of work to do in this room. And I think that's super interesting. You talk about tools and capacity building. If we were coming in cold, right, a business or a policymaker, where is the first stop that they should go to get the technical capabilities that they need to implement that methodology?
Well, certainly, I should say, come to us. Life Cycle Initiative, we have quite a lot of materials. We're actually also working on guidance, particularly also guidance for non-experts to understand why life cycle thinking is important, but also how to distinguish when we're applying. We see a lot of good practice in life cycle assessment and life cycle thinking. We also see a lot of misuse. And it's important as well to be able to distinguish when a study is being done, with an agenda behind, or when a study is actually robust. It provides critical review, and it provides, the robustness to actually support decisions. So we're trying to put all that, but at the same time, it's also super important. There is capacity out there. We also, one of the things that we're trying to do from UNEP is to show the networks and foster the networks around the world, particularly also with governments when they want to work on, okay, shall we incorporate life cycle thinking into policy? They don't want to be working with foreign consultants. I'm sorry, It sounds a bit weird, but it's normal. At the end of the day, they want to be working with local actors. And there are many of these local actors. We definitely have a long way to go in terms of generating more capacity. But one of the things that we're doing is also try to put people in touch with those who are local, who can help already, speak their own language, literally, and also bring in the expertise that they have in the country.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that puts us in a nice position to go to the industry perspective. And Pongsak, I want to ask you, from a business perspective, how have you adopted LCA thinking and approaches into the life cycle of your products and packaging?
Thank you for the question. So before I answer your question, let me introduce the company a little bit for everybody here to understand who are we. So Huhtamaki is a packaging company. We are a global company from Finland, over 100 years of experience. In this region, we also established as a Huhtamaki in Thailand and Vietnam. So we have manufacturing in Thailand and Vietnam. We have a 27 years history in this region. So Huhtamaki, what does Huhtamaki do? We are leading the market on packaging products, deliver the products to food on the go and food on the shelf. So we supply product to both channels. So the products and technologies, we also have paperboard, molded fiber, and flexible packaging. So in this region, we are very active on flexible packaging and also paperboard business. So when we talk about strategy and sustainability, Huhtamaki have a very clear strategy toward 2030 strategy. We also focus to two themes. First is the climate, and second is a circularity. So that's also supporting to the market and to our consumer on how we can be best use of our resource. So when we talk about climate, we also thinking outside our business. We think about the true life cycle of the product that we are produce, and not just only packaging product, but we are very, very expert on fruit. So we think about what and where, when the food, what and when food start until food end of the life cycle. And we need to produce our packaging product to support through the whole life cycle. So internally, we also did a lot of improvements. So in the context of reduce and reuse. So reduce means we also reduce the resource that we are used. We maximize the efficiency of the resource that we have. So we did a lot of internal. We spent a lot of time investing our technologies that we can upgrade, and we did upgraded our operations for more efficiency and more productivities, and that's helping a lot of resource consumption from direct and indirect. From the upstream why, we also pick the right material, the right suppliers that we can be the most efficient by both. We've done a lot of discussion between us and the upstream player. What can we do and collaborate together to improve and to reduce all the resources that we have for us to be able to become the best in class. Yeah. So we invest a lot of technology in that area. In the downstream chain, we also work very close to our customer, who is our food producer. So on the product developments, we collaborate both businesses to make sure we also maximize our resource, and we also can improve our product performance to the consumer. So we are in the process of closing the loop. We also think about changing from linear economy to circular economy. So we also transforming our products development in Huhtamaki from non-recyclable to recyclable. And this is a very, very big breakthrough that we invest a lot of time, resource, technologies in every region that we are presented, including in this region, to change and transform the product from non-recyclable to be recyclable. Nevertheless, so we also develop and collaborating with our upstream player on post-consumer recycle and also post-industrial recycle to be part of our product development. And that's also will help to reduce the fresh raw material. So our target is to keep the products in the loop, and we reuse again and again and again and again. So and we have a very high ambition on that. So that's what we do.
That's really interesting. And I want to come back to this thing you said, you invest a lot in the technologies. Can you share a little bit more about the business case and the business model behind that? You know, when you're investing in these technologies, obviously there's a high capex upfront. How do you get that back, you know, the return of the investment? Are you seeing demand in the market as well, demanding these products that are like circular?
Thank you. It's a very beginning of the journey. We are expecting a very, very big push and big lift in the future. We did a lot of investment. I give you an example. So we start investing our upstream capabilities to be able to make our raw material as part of product developments, and we put the money around the regions. So now we start to see the demand. We start to have a success project that we also be able to deliver our products to the market together with our business partner and the customer. It's a very, very beginning of the journey, but we start to see a very positive trend. And we not stop on that because we dare to invest, we dare to close the loop. Yeah.
Wonderful. This is a good way to go back to the policy angle, Jitti. And I think you mentioned these success stories that the government has put in, but what challenges have you been facing from the ground? Have you, faced, for example, pushback from industry in terms of implementing EPR legislation that, adopts polluters pay principle? Can you maybe speak a little bit to some of those?
Right. Thank you, Jessica. I think we can separate into two sides. One side is government, and the side is private sectors. I may start from the government part. I would like to say that when you try to implement a certain policies for the whole countries, I think one of the most important is information. And if you are like us, we are in the developing countries, we don't have so much information. We try to develop more and more. And I do believe especially when you mention life cycle thinking, we need a big set of data, a complex one. So I recommend that if our colleague here from different countries, if you try to push in terms of the LCT policies, I suggest that data preparation is most important. And it's not just only a database that you have to need. You need a very good quality of data as well, because of your try to make some target on something. So quality of data is important, and how to manage them is important. And I came back to the private sectors. If the policymakers want to do something and you set the bar so high, it's really difficult for the private sector. So I am the middleman. I am between governmental and private sector. So if you are government here, please be gentle as well, because there are some difficulty downstream. Okay, so be reasonable and think that I believe that everyone try to make a better world from private and governmental bodies. So challenging its data is one thing, and implementation it's the level of difficulties as well. So just to challenge for my opinions.
That's very interesting. Llorenç, would you like to respond to that? You know, do governments have to be tougher, or do they have to be a little gentler with industry?
I've been in industry as well in the past, and I would tend to think usually tougher is better. At the same time, I think it's also putting rules, and I think I totally agree with Jitti. I mean, you need to be realistic, but at the same time, it's also good to be ambitious. You know, aim, what is it? Aim for the moon and reach for the moon. Exactly, yes, whatever. But getting a good place. So no, I think certainly in terms of being ambitious is important, but I totally agree with what Jitti is saying. I mean, having the access to the data and the methods also that make sense. I think that's very important. At the same time, I always also try to push. Yes, let's aim to have better data. Let's aim to have better methods. But what we have today is already good, and it's good enough as well to make decisions, to inform decisions. So start where you are with data that you have, with the methods that we have, and improve as you move along. But we heard it as well in the opening plenary. I mean, we needed to start acting yesterday. So we don't have time to, you know, sometimes we hear as well from life cycle assessment, life cycle approaches, oh, but that takes ages to apply. Well, yes, it takes ages, but it's also an iterative process. You can start with, you know, the rough calculations that you can do today. Those already give you the 20-80, right? I mean, with 20% of the effort, you're already gonna get 80% of the answer. Well, start there and then refine. I mean, get better and better as you move along. So don't get the paralysis by analysis, thinking that, well, when I get everything, when I get the methods perfect, then I'll make a decision. We need to decide yesterday to start acting.
Don't make perfect the enemy of the good, I think is the philosophy here. I want to ask you about your views on EPR, because the extended producer responsibility legislation has been growing in Asia, and many countries are now enacted it or thinking about enacting it. Is that legislation on the right track in your view? And do you think that LCT is sufficiently integrated into that?
That's a great question, and thank you for that. So certainly extended producer responsibility is, I think, a huge part of the way to approach things. But then there are EPR systems and there are EPR systems, meaning that there's not one just single type of extended producer responsibility. In my opinion, bringing in life cycle thinking much more strongly into extended producer responsibility is crucial. Thinking of extended producer responsibility also as a life cycle approach is crucial, meaning that extended producer responsibility is not just a market mechanism to get private sector to contribute to the cost of recycling. That too, it is important, but it's also an important way to modulate, for instance, the fees or the mechanisms in extended producer responsibility, so they give the right incentives for the producers to design also, so to bring in the results or the kind of the upstream design mechanisms to already think the products that they are putting in the market have been thought through, have reduced as much as they can reduce the use of materials, are incentivizing the reuse models that will keep products in the market. And then eventually that everything that they're putting in these products, all the materials can be recycled at the end of life. So they have designed these products adequately. And the incentives for that need to be put through the extended producer responsibility. So a well-designed EPR is essentially a way of implementing life cycle thinking, and in that sense, it is definitely a good contribution to solving the plastic pollution problem.
That's really insightful. Thank you. Pongsak, I want to come to you. From the industry perspective, are you seeing EPR legislation being enacted in all the countries that you operate in? How are you responding to that?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So when we look through the whole cycle of our plastic, so we start from upstream, midstream, downstream, consumer, and post-consumer, and come back again and again. So we are trying to get all the plastic become recyclable, which means we are trying to close the loop. So this is a very, very demanding to the player in the industry to make a very big shift, both technology and resource, including capital. So the investment can be returned when we have a pull demand. So demand can be pulled from consumers' culture, and the best thing I observe in this region, at least, we also start to see a very big shift of the consumer, of the community. They start to demanding and ask for more green, more sustainability. So that's very, very good. But at the same time, from the regulations, we also need a regulation to support us, to make sure at least it's a parity of the products as a comparable. So when we deliver sustainable product, we put on the shelf, we ask, we have very good products. Mr. Customer, consumer, please get the products. If you have a choice, 1 or 2, please go to number 2, because it is the best product and recyclable product, can be recyclable products. So the answer is can be yes or no, depends on how we create pool through the whole value chain. So EPR play a very, very big role, at least to make both products comparable. So that's what and how we see from the industrial perspective. In the same time, we also need to keep improving ourselves as well. So for Huhtamaki, we also have a very, very clear strategy that we want to close the loop. And Blue Loop is our products brand that we are very, very proud to share that we launched the Power of Tree. The Power of Tree is the product innovation and technology that we transforming packaging products from non-recycled to be recyclable. And that Power of Trees start from mono polyethylene. There's a range of mono polyethylene available that Blue Loop can offer, and Huhtamaki can explain in more detail. The second one is the mono polypropylene for retorts solution. So we also have this product, and this also very, very breakthrough when we start to completely remove aluminum out from plastic packaging products. And then another choice that the consumer can have is a high barrier paper. So this is all the Power of Trees that Huhtamaki already have product available. And we also have a capacity in every region that we can offer, and we can launch this product to the consumer. But we want a very big support. Big support we want is at least we want to make our product competitive. From our internal management, we did anything possible, and we also collaborate from midstream player, downstream player. But we need a very big support from the conductor who can make everybody play the same song. Yeah, so that's what we need.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and that is actually the role of governments, right? I mean, they have to create the enabling environment and frameworks for that to happen. But it's so encouraging to hear that there is strong industry support for EPR legislation. I'm going to turn to all of you very soon for questions, but I have a question for Jitti. EPR is a key piece of the negotiations that's happening for the Global Plastics Treaty. I think everyone is, watching these negotiations very closely on the road to Busan. Can we get your thoughts on, how do you think this treaty is going to shape some of the policy making that we see, and also industry engagement? And to what extent do you feel that LCA and LCT is very much part of that conversation?
Thank you, Jessica. It's quite tough question here right now. I personally do believe that LCT is a tool that should integrate in the plastic treaties for sure, in my opinions. And I think it's quite clear idea that the LCT could be an important element in this one. However, how can we implement the full concept of LCT is another things. And I do believe that even in Thailand, we have a lot of discussion here. We try to focus from the beginning, I mean, from the extractions, manufacturing, use phase, disposal, somehow in terms of their real situation, real life, we want to make a better world, but private sector have to make a profit as well. It's key important how can we balance between economic growth and environmental concern. I think it's important, and I think we are struggling on this topic for many times for INC. And one thing that important, if we are not touched about the policy, it's I do believe that for the plastic treaties or EPR, I do believe that the digital transformation is a key element because of the if we got technologies that help people to understand, get the very informative information with a very short time, we can make a change, which I do believe that we need some transformation on digital, and it could help not only plastic but others materials as well. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the digital transformation piece is very key. But something interesting you said as well about, having to make a profit. I think, we have demonstrated, at least in the last decade, that we need to decouple emissions from growth. And it is also possible for companies to be responsible and also make a profit. And that shift in consumer sentiment, which, Pongsak, you mentioned, is very crucial. But, between the both of you, any responses on what Jitti has said and also the Global Plastics Treaty?
Yeah, so I think he raised a very, very good point. To me, we are not sitting and put our hands up and say, please help, we are in trouble. I think we need a lot of collaboration through the whole value chain. So that what Huhtamaki is doing, for example, when we are developing our sustainable products that we are transforming from multi-layers of different material to mono material, we also collaborate with our upstream players and also downstream player who is our customer to make sure we deliver the products that they perform well and they also deliver a very good productivities. At least we not compromise on quality first, number one. Second, we are not compromised on productivities and we don't make our customer trouble. So they will not take our products if our products cannot run to their operation. And they will not take even the product run slow, for example. So I think a lot of collaboration that we all need to help each other. And we are encouraging our business partner, our customer, to helping us and working together as a team. And I'm glad that we get a quite reasonable support and good support from some certain. But we also need a lot of encouragement from the government to make sure we also create awareness and put some pressure on all the players in the market. Because in this industry, there are many converters, there are many flexible company who produce a product and supply to the market, start from very capable one to a very, very incapable one. So the majority of those, we also need to support them because they cannot survive without support. So we can raising fund, we can invest, but some of the small players in the market, they are hardly, be able to invest themselves. So that's why the government can support, and we are here, everybody can support because we cannot go forward alone. We need to bring everybody together. Doesn't matter who are they, but we need to move all together to make this shift from linear economy to circular economy. So I think we need to help each other and we need a big support.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point here about the supply chain, because I think very similarly to what we're seeing in sustainability disclosures and Scope 3 reporting, there are many small players who don't have the resources, and the big companies have a responsibility to handhold them and provide the resources to the supply chain to be able to take on LCA approaches as well as LCT. Llorenç, any thoughts here before I go to our delegates?
Yes, and I hope I will not open too many cans of worms here. But so I think So going back to the point of life cycle approaches, I think life cycle approaches or the systems perspective, I mean, the key thing is to look at everything, to look at the whole system, but to look also at all environmental, socioeconomic issues. One key element, and that's, I think, super important. I mean, we all agree, I think we cannot just save the system while impairing the economy. But it's all in the same part, it's all in the same place. I think one absolutely essential element here is that we're not talking about redesigning specific products. We need to redesign the way in which the economy works. Dr. Apurvaria in the opening plenary mentioned this statistic that I think came from one of the UNEP reports on the quantification of the externalities from the plastic pollution between now and 2040. I was part of that report and I don't recall, it was $3.3 trillion, I think something like that between now and then. When we look at that cost, the important thing is that that cost is not being paid by anybody, well, it's being paid by society. When we bring that cost and we distribute it in a fairer way on, well, who is actually causing that pollution, who is causing that, those impacts, then we're going to see that it's not that we're going to make it impossible for specific products to become sustainable. Well, maybe yes, we will really need to change. And the thing is, everybody will need to be changing. So we really need to transform the way in which the economy is working. We will need to support this transition because indeed there's going to be many small and medium-sized enterprises in the supply chain who may not be able to adapt. We need to help them adapt. But it really means that we have to change the way, we have to change the mindset in which we're using plastics in the economy. Otherwise, we cannot do it product by product and, just making some changes here and there. We really need to transform the way in which we're using plastic.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It brings to mind that circular economy graphic that they played in the video earlier, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and how actually you can create a closed-loop circular economy, but we're just not doing it yet. And I think the Global Plastics Treaty is a perfect example of a mechanism that can enable that. But it requires all of us to support it and for all of us to give it the teeth and the strength that a piece of legislation needs that covers the global economy. I want to turn to our delegates here today. This is a very interesting discussion. Any thoughts, comments, questions from the floor? Okay, can you identify yourself and your organization as well as, yeah, thank you.
Good morning. Llorenç Cholasin from Asian Institute of Technologies. I don't have any questions, but I want to add to what speaker has said. I think especially the two gentlemen and three gentlemen speaking about this one. The cultural change is very important. The capacities of the organization in industry, I don't think in Thailand we have a problem. I think the subject of the life cycle already been taught in many universities and we are able to produce the engineer and scientists now working in the industries and also working with the government. But what I think that we have to really move forward is to really remove the mindset of less interaction between the governments and private sectors. Just because of the mindset of private sector is doing profitability and government doing non-profit. So I think we have to close the gap by having a culture of interaction more in order to have the industry and government to interact and to exchange the innovations on life cycle approach. And it has to lead into not profitability, but circularity profitability. And that is a joint profitabilities that both sides and also the stakeholders in the countries and also in different countries can also looking at. A safe example, can the government organization in any country open one unit of the private sector engagement for circularity, for example? So that we know that how the industry has been good in adopting this idea and be able to produce something that can be also replicated and scale up into the big way. So that is something that we can also think about moving on the mindset changing and also the quick change that we can do.
Thank you for an excellent intervention. I think you point out two very important things there, that there is a deficit of trust sometimes between governments and businesses. And I think we've seen that there has been industry lobbying, for example, in some jurisdictions where they water down legislation. And therefore, governments have a certain sense of like, okay, we want to enact this, but we're not getting industry support. So there needs to be that continued communication and transparency. Any thoughts and reflections here?
Yeah, thank you for the comment, and I totally agree. Very, very good comments. From the industrial perspective, we already make a move, at least from Utamaki. We already invest resource, times, technologies to make sure we are not the bottleneck of the cycle. So the loop, the whole loop, we are one in the loop, yeah? So we would like to be part of the circular economy, and we start to make a move, and we did move. And I did share already, we already invest in many areas, and we also already have product available. So we will continue to do that, and we will continue to collaborate to make sure we make things connect. So the one of the challenging for us, and I would like to share, is the challenging is about the facility of recycle facility availability in this region is maybe a challenge. And if we can accelerate that, we also can bring the post-consumer back to reuse again and again and again. So that will be fantastic. What and how we can make this happen, I think we also need one who is the master that they can shift the whole gear, that we make everybody connect. So that's most important one from my perspective.
This lack of infrastructure is the key issue. Lauren, did you want it?
I just wanted to share one thing, because I think I fully agree as well. I mean, in terms of the collaboration and particularly government and industry, I would also just highlight there are examples, perhaps not with a unit in the government, but I would cite the plastic pacts or Global Plastics Action Partnership working as well in many countries, bringing together different actors and stakeholders. And I think in these examples, what we see is that what works well is government working with industry and other stakeholders towards specific targets that they've voluntarily agreed with specific metrics. So they meet together and they see, okay, what is the progress that we're making? I think doing more of this, and perhaps also with these targets being embedded in legislation, so they make them stronger and also bring all of the industry, not just the front runners. This is already a good example of what could look like.
Excellent. Questions? I saw a hand there. Please go ahead. We'll take a couple and then come back.
Hi, good morning. This is Na from UNDP Cambodia. So my question is related to look at the upcoming global treaty and also the readiness of the country. Take Southeast Asia as an example. Some country is a little bit advanced, while the other is far behind the plan. So what is the supporting mechanism that perhaps UNEP prepared to make sure that everyone will be not left behind to implement the upcoming global treaties? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take another question. There was a hand over there. Yes, go ahead. Could we get some, perhaps you could go to a microphone, or perhaps we'll take a question from the lady first and then we can come to you as well. Yeah, both of you.
Is this working? Yeah. Hi, my name is Arpita. I represent the Gaia, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Asia Pacific. And my question is for all the panelists that I'd really like to hear from. So we know that life cycle analysis does not adequately capture upstream impacts and are insufficient to assess the environmental and health implications of switching from one product to another. Similarly, like we are talking about life cycle assessments for circularity, we are also concerned that circular economy paradigm itself only considers material reuse. So we want to continue to reuse and sort of recycle material forever, but it also does not address energy use, water use, land use, and essentially, and the most concerning part is planetary boundaries as such. So in that sense, it does not capture the full implications of the full life cycle of plastics. Knowing this, how do we justify LCA as a mechanism to stay within the safe and just planetary boundaries that also supports informal workers and especially the impacted communities. I would really like to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll come to the gentleman and then we'll come back to the panel.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Thank you very much to the panelists. My name is Mikael Buki. I've just arrived to Bangkok. I will be working in the European Union delegation on everything environment, agriculture, and health. I'm very grateful for this event today because I've could already made the connections and understand about the thinking in the region and in Thailand. My intervention was related to the interplay between the private sector and governments, plural. I will just share my own experience. I've been working for the European Commission on those topics for nearly 20 years. And our observation and the latest policy initiative that we had regarding the promotion of circular economy and other topics were that the private sector, the companies, are extremely good at optimizing their business in a given set of framework conditions. But when you start changing those conditions, then it becomes much harder for them to adapt and to optimize, and therefore to make returns and minimize their risks. These are the two main factors. So the biggest carrot that governments or legal organizations such as ours can do is to give predictability. I think that's where really we can have a major advantage to if we don't know all the details of upcoming regulations of rules. If we cannot exactly be completely specific on the compliance or even on the type of policies and behavior that will advertise to their customers, what we can do is at least set a clear timeline, setting some milestones, setting the general direction of travel and the speed, the pace at which those regulations can come. So that's like a time predictability as well as predictability as when different groups will move in that directions. As the EU, we've just adopted rules on eco-design, for instance. And so we have said there will be rules that relate to basically all aspects of circular economy. They will come into force in a couple of years, and we will run this sector, and articulate specific rules in which you can have a say. There are a stakeholder platform where you can come and let us know what is actually feasible in that amount of time, and then maybe in a longer time horizon. I think that's how we help. We set the pace of the agenda, and both in terms of the risk and the returns that those companies can take, as well as what is expected as societal change, as behavioral change on the consumer side and in the consumer patterns.
Thank you for your excellent intervention and questions. I'll quickly go to the panel before we take more questions, but maybe Llorenç, you want to take that question around supporting mechanisms for developing countries, as well as how do you justify the LCA approach for upstream?
Thank you. So super quickly, on the supporting mechanism, I mean, I think the answer is this is not for UNEP to decide. UNEP will be there, or UNEP is there supporting the discussions, but this is the member states who will be deciding what the supporting mechanism. But I fully agree with you. we need the support for those that may need to kind of run a longer race, to provide the support to help with this transition. That's my opinion. But certainly, I think in terms of the mechanism, that's the member states who are deciding. In terms of LCA, so I think that's a very valid point. That's super important. And I think also here we're talking life cycle approaches. So while I agree with you, LCA is not perfect. And I've been working on this for many, many years. LCA needs to be complemented with other approaches. LCA is the least imperfect of the tools, if you want. It's the best we have. But I agree, we don't have to use it on its own. I think we've actually done massive improvements in terms of, for instance, how human health impacts and other, ecosystem quality impacts are being incorporated in LCA. And by the way, the publicity mention is that at the end of, in about a month, the Lifecycle Initiative is launching the first global lifecycle impact assessment method that is kind of bringing global consensus on many topics and many improvements, including the consideration of marine litter impacts on marine ecosystems and human health. It does not do the full thing. So still, we need to complement this with other elements. Certainly socioeconomic implications and how are you bringing in waste pickers, but not only waste pickers and informal waste pickers, also how are you considering the impact on the communities that are depending on manufacturing plastic products today that are simply not adequate? We really don't want those products, but we don't want all the people that depend on that economy to just end up in poverty from one day to the next. So all of these elements need to be incorporated. Fully agree. I think it's really considering this life cycle approach, really particularly bringing this perspective to bring in all of those elements with LCA plus everything else that you need to bring in the relevant socioeconomic indicators and other environmental indicators. So I think we're kind of agreeing, it's just we need to move from somewhere, and that's perhaps the best we have today, as long as we incorporate it. And I think that's, yeah, I'll leave it at that, thanks.
Thank you. I'll take a couple more, given that we've limited time. We have one from the right, one from the left. Go ahead. Okay, while we wait for you, we'll take the question here first. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi there, I'm Victoria and I'm from Hong Kong, China. And I am an ambassador from Save the Children. You said you wanted to redesign the process and the relationship and make the economy to change the way of the use of plastic in the economy. So I want to ask, what is your strategy to persuade or make people or the government follow this redesigned economic trend?
Thank you very much. There you go. Yes, go ahead.
So it's Jet Chang again from Tomra. Actually, it's a general comment based on the panel discussions and some of the Q&As. I think my conclusion is actually a well-designed mandatory EPR will be the solution to most of the questions we are talking about here. It will provide a kind of a data integrity into the whole value circle, because there's not so much data available yet, but then in the EPR, you have the obligation to do the reporting, right? That's at least some data will be gathered. That also find a way to engage the government and the industry, because you have the legislation, you have the PRO who is negotiating with the government to achieve the target, and you also put together all the value circle to work together, and it's encourage the eco-design. It will encourage the whole externality calculations in that. So that's kind of the thing, in the plastic treaty, I think recently there is a business coalition for the global rules. One of the key requirements is to reach the treaty and to have a globally harmonized framework on EPR. That will actually solve a lot of problems here and there globally. That's kind of why our CEO Top also made the statements that from the industry we have the solutions available, and we need the policy. And also we are working with the WCBSD. There is a global circularity protocol. It's also calling for the EPR, well-designed mandatory EPR. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your sharing. And I think the lady wanted to ask a question. We'll take one final question and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, I'm Llorenç Liu. I'm a professor in entrepreneurship focusing on sustainability and circular economy based in Singapore, NTU. When we talked about policy solutions, I think I want to go to the fundamentals, people. So when we have so many great policies and a lot of solutions without people to execute, I think we're not going to get there. I think, so what the reason why I joined NTU last year is really to address this fundamental issue, is how we empower people from all levels, right? I mean, at the university we teach undergraduate, graduate, and we also have executive courses. So I have a circular economy course called Graduate Certificate, available for all Singaporeans. And in Singapore, the Skills Future of Singapore actually has programs to allow all Singaporeans and PRs subsidized 90% to take courses, certificates, to upskill and reskill, so that they can be ready from all stakeholders, right? In whatever stakeholder they're in, policymaking, educators, executives, SMEs, and entrepreneurs. So we educate them more. So I think we haven't, I looked at the program today and yesterday and tomorrow, I haven't seen an issue on human resource. I think human resource is really fundamental for us to drive towards circularity.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to wrap up all the questions because I think that question is quite similar to the first one, which is the strategy of how do you persuade people to come on board. And with this in mind, the final question I'd like to ask is, what is your ask of the people in this room? You've been asking them questions, now they're going to ask something of you. What do you think is the one thing that you want to see, and also keeping in mind some of the sharing around how do we empower people? I'll start with Jitti and I'll end with Llorenç.
Thank you so much. We hear a very good questions here, but in my opinion, I do understand that engagement of people is important. And engagement doesn't mean ordinary people. I mean, governmental bodies, private sectors is great. And even we think about the new business of circular economies. Right now, after our experience, it seems that private sector go faster than public. And I think this is a gap that we have to catch up in terms of public to reach the private target, even for climate or plastic. And I do believe that we have a room of improvements that we need to work together. And for sure, not everyone understands the same things on the same page. Educational purpose is important. So I would like to say that here we listened a very great question here, and as a governmental bodies, I think we have a room improvement, and we would like to engage all of you to join us still, and it's quite important topic for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pongsak.
So from the industrial perspective, as an industrial player, so I see this in two main topics. The first one is, as a player, what can we do to make products available and make product affordable? So we need support from EPR. In the same time, we need to help ourselves. We need to support each other in the industry. And Huhtamaki is very welcome and very encouraged to collaborate. So we are very open for our player in the market to working with us. And we also are connecting to midstream, upstream, and also the consumer to make sure we deliver the products that fit for purpose and best in class, could be best in class. We want to make our products recyclable. And we would like everybody here to promote. So if recyclable and plastic waste reduction is the topic in mind on everybody, please promote this. And please help us, please help the player in the industry who have product in the market to make scale, because the business run by scale. We are transforming our business, changing the product from A to B. So we want B to become A, yeah? So we need to promote and we need to support. So that from the industrial player perspective. From the people, if we believe this is the future, of course everybody believes, we also should encourage ourselves to communicate and influence the new generation, from generation to generation. And Huhtamaki, we are very keen on that. We are very active and we want to do more. So if we put very clear in our mind that this is one important thing, every day I will talk about this. Then we will change the whole world by ourselves. So that's from what I see.
Thank you for the important reminder that we create the demand, and I think we can create the market mechanisms that will cause change. Llorenç, final word.
Yeah, thanks. I think that was already going very much in this direction. So you ask us, what do we ask from the audience? And of course, the audience is very diverse, and you all have many hats, like we all do. But from governments, I would say we always talk about the economy, and that's extremely important. I mean, at the end of the day, the economy is the kind of the rules that tell us how the house works. But remember that the economy is not just the economy that we see today. So when thinking of the economy, think of the whole life cycle and think of the externalities as well, because that is real economy as well. The impacts from plastic pollution, we pay, all of us, and the government has to pay through public health costs or the cost of lost revenue because the tourism sites are losing the revenue, or the loss from fisheries. So all of those costs are there. So when you're thinking about the economy, think that those costs also exist. So actually transforming the economy is important. And maybe, Victoria, that would be the way in which I would also try and convince the government. So, think of your own, the taxes that you're collecting, where are you spending them, and how could you spend them better if we transform the economy? From industry, I think, we've already heard a lot, but, particularly industry needs to be there and showing that you want this. And I think we've heard it many times with global rules, and the gentleman also from the European Commission is mentioning, we need this visibility, we need predictability. So ask for these rules and ask that everybody has to comply with the same rules. You're coming with great innovations, which are perhaps not as competitive today, simply because others are being, are doing the free rider. They are putting products in the market that generate lots of pollution, generate lots of costs, and don't have to pay for them. So be an actor there. And certainly, civil society organizations continue to making noise and continue to demand that things are done in a proper way, ensuring that everybody's playing ball. And all of us as citizens, I think I fully concur with my colleague, we all can make noise as well. We all can demand the choices. When you go to the supermarkets, refuse when you see that things that could be in a reusable packaging are in a single use. Say, no, actually, I want a reusable option. Oh, we don't have it, but I want a reusable option. You will probably not get this change in 2 days, probably not in 2 years, but at least you will be making noise, and we can irritate everybody else till in the end we manage that change. So yes, just encouraging everyone. This change is not just possible; it's necessary, and it's actually desirable. I think we need to build that vision that we want to move into a world that will be better. So there's no shame in that. Just keep asking for it because we need to make it happen.
Thank you for the important reminder to think about the cost of externalities and to irritate the right people. As the moderator, I think my 2 calls to actions. 1, look at the Sea of Solutions website, the UNEP website, lots of resources there for you to really delve deep into the topic. And the second is please watch our Wasted trailer. It's just outside. You can find more information, wasted.film. We have a pledge there, and we would encourage all of you to look at the resources there as well and take the pledge, because it shows our policymakers that we care and that we want to vote for the right action. So please join me to thank the speakers for such an insightful discussion this morning. I'll pass the time now to the next moderator, Pedro. Thank you.
Very good. Checking if it's working. I think it is. Very good. Thank you very much. My name is Pedro São Simão. I'm the lead for national initiatives of the Global Plastic Action Partnership, and I'm very pleased to moderate this session today on unlocking circular business models. And I think it builds on what has been discussed during this morning from a slightly different perspective. Again, we heard a lot about the issues and the costs, and we will look at the opportunity of the economic opportunity. And as some of the speakers mentioned in the previous panel, this change to a circular economy for plastics is really desirable, and it's an opportunity for the whole value chain. So I'll start by introducing the guest speakers and welcome them to the stage. Today, this panel is a multi-stakeholder panel, so to collect different perspectives. We'll have the side from the private sector, so I will like to welcome Mr. Arsha Reddy, Vice President and Global Head of Sustainability Development of Indorama Ventures. It is a Thai world-class chemical company and the world's largest producer of PET resin. I would also like to invite Mr. Bintang Ekananda, co-founder and CEO of Alner, an Indonesian company that provides daily essentials in returnable and reusable packaging. And now, from the perspective of the government on how to enable these circular business models, I would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Lung Gok Tuan, Director General, International Cooperation Department, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Vietnam. And online with us, joining any minute, Mr. Ujang Solihin Sidik, Deputy Director for Producer Governance, Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia, and also very important in this whole value chain, the perspective from the finance sector. So I would like also to welcome Ms. Regula Sheg, founding partner and chief financial and operating officer of the Circulate Capital. So thank you very much for accepting this invitation and for joining us today in the panel. We will start with a message of our director at the Global Plastic Action Partnership, Clemens Schmidt. And after this message, I will introduce you to a recent report that we published on circular industry solutions. So I'll please ask to show the video of the most.
Good morning, and welcome to the plenary session on unlocking circular business models. I'm honored to be with you virtually today. First of all, I want to thank the United Nations Environmental Programme for their invitation to the Global Plastic Action Partnership to lead this session and for the continued collaboration. I want to thank all of the speakers who accepted our invitation and all of you in the audience, those gathered in Bangkok and those online. Sea of Solution is organized as a crucial moment following the intersessional open-ended expert group meetings held in Bangkok in August, and ahead of the INC 5 milestone, when in November, world leaders will have agreed on an internationally legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. The Global Plastic Action Partnership is a multi-stakeholder platform hosted at the World Economic Forum since 2018 that aims to shape a more sustainable and inclusive world through the eradication of plastic pollution. At the global level, we aim at supporting plastic action in 25 countries by 2025. We have currently 18 member countries, of which 7 are in Asia. Asia is particularly affected by the plastic pollution problem. With its rapid urbanization, rising plastic production and consumption, and often inadequate waste management infrastructure has emerged as a hotspot for plastic pollution. According to UNEP figures, plastic production has increased by 8.7% year-on-year from 1.7 million tons in 1950 to 288 million tons in 2012. Consumption is forecasted to increase, with regions like Asia leading the growth. This is how Asia is one crucial importance for us. Let's remember that 2 of our pioneering countries are from Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Vietnam. GPAP is now working with a growing number of countries in the region to empower them to tackle the problem thanks to a multi-stakeholder and evidence-based approach via the national plastic action partnerships. Furthermore, as shown in our recent study on circular industry solutions, Asia is home of several promising initiatives and innovation showing the potential of transition towards socially and economically viable circular business models. We invited some of our members at Sea of Solutions to share their learnings and challenges with the broad Sea Circular community, because we believe in the power of knowledge sharing as an essential tool to inform policy decisions, unlock financing opportunity, and build trust among different parties. These are essential levers to tackle effectively plastic pollution, a problem that knows no border and needs integrated action and regional collaboration. GPAP and the World Economic Forum are now further scaling their support, facilitating strategic dialogues at global level and supporting the treaty negotiation process, supporting local action through the National Plastic Action Partnerships, and exchanging good practices and building partnerships also at a regional level, as we are doing these days with Sea of Solution. I wish you all a fruitful participation in the event, with a lot of learnings and new connections to join hands with you to make the region free from plastic pollution. Thank you.
Very good. So now, again, we heard Clemens introducing the action of the Global Plastic Action Partnership, and again, briefly also introducing a recent report that we published in in May this year on circular industry solutions for a global plastic treaty, where we try to really provide additional insights to the discussions of the Global Plastics Treaty from the perspective of the business sector and entrepreneurs that are already implementing circular business models. So I'll ask please to put on the presentation. Thank you very much. So again, oh, thank you. So yeah, thank you. So this report started with this idea that it would be important to share with all stakeholders involved in the treaty negotiations the insights and the learnings from the community the business community that is already implementing circular business models. So we went around the world to interview different business people and entrepreneurs to really understand several points on their journey to implement the circular industry solutions. So the first point was to understand what motivated them in the first place and why they decided to start to be bold and implement circular business models. The second point was what barriers and challenges did they face in the beginning and how they overcome those challenges. And understanding a little bit the picture and where they stand right now, we try to understand also what is there yet to be done. So what is needed for your solutions to be scaled and to become mainstream? How can we make your circular solution the standard and not the niche business? And with that in mind, what is the role of the Global Plastics Treaty in really enabling the conditions for you to surpass these challenges? And we got a lot of responses from these business people and entrepreneurs. And I would like to highlight that in this sample, we got more than 2/3 of the respondents being a for-profit circular business model. And from those 2/3, more than half, more than 50% already had profitable solutions, which is, I think, important to mention here because it's nothing new and it is indeed something that is achievable, profitability when you implement circular business models. But the main challenge that most of them were facing was the scaling, making their solutions mainstream. From all the respondents, just 25% or less than that said that their solution already achieved the size and the scale that they wanted in the beginning. So the vast majority is still yet to achieve that scale. And the main reasons why that is happening and how that can move forward, highlighted by the different respondents, are one, policy. So they need more and better regulation and better policy to really create the enabling conditions to scale their solutions. The second most mentioned point and condition was finance, because they still need a lot of finance to really scale these solutions. Most of them said from innovation to test and pilot an initial commercial offer, they're fine, they have the means, but when it comes to scaling, it's very challenging for them to get the fundings from the finance sector. And third point mentioned also is the non-policy interventions that we have been speaking during this conference since the beginning of the day. So on policy, again, widely discussed during the day, but what the business people and entrepreneurs that we interviewed asked was for standards, for common definitions, and for safety regulation. And they said that the Global Plastics Treaty can really enable this policy, and most important, to make the rules of the game clear for all the participants in this transition to a circular economy for plastics. They also mentioned the relevance of the extended producer responsibility schemes. It is a curious fact, 20% of our respondents said it was an EPR scheme that motivated their circular solution in the first place. So I think it's a clear evidence that EPR schemes have a role to play in this transition. But what they ask is that we have first EPR schemes that cover the full life cycle of plastics, not just focus on recycling, but also upstream solutions like reuse, and even potentially ban some unnecessary and problematic plastics. That there are some common rules. They all understand that, of course, every jurisdiction has its own specificities, and we need to adapt EPR for different contexts, but some common rules would be important because most of these businesses operate in different geographies, so they need some level of certainty across the different jurisdictions. And of course, targets that motivate even more entrepreneurs and business people to transition to circularity. But again, always being mindful that these targets should be developed in a way that is just for every different type of context. And one of the examples that was presented in this report and one of the respondents mentioned is the case of Indonesia. So you cannot apply exactly the same targets and same approach to a megacity like Jakarta as you will apply to the 12,000 islands of the country. So you need to be mindful and again, be flexible enough, but again, create a minimum standard so that you create the conditions for the businesses to really implement their circular solutions. And then very connected to policies, access to finance. Again, reinforcing that what they need is finance to scale and not finance to start. And most of them are looking for private finance. And we at the World Economic Forum and at the Global Plastic Action Partnership, we have a financing coordination group. And one of the statistics that we usually use is that to transition to a true circular economy for plastics in the next decade, we will need $1.5 trillion of public finance investment, and we will need $15.4 trillion of private investment in the next decade to achieve a level of pollution that is 9% less than 2019. So it's a huge investment and a huge capital investment. And for this capital investment to happen, our respondent says that the first clear regulation is needed, not only for them, as I mentioned before, but also for the finance sector to get the incentive to divest from linear solutions and drive these resources towards circular solutions and to create the certainty that the finance sector needs to really put these resources on circular solutions. Again, EPR schemes were mentioned, not for the capital investment, but for the continuation and operation of these circular business models as a system. So important to collect the fees and use these procedures to really keep investing on the circular economy for plastics transition. And finally, frameworks that will ensure more transparency in the way that companies disclose their information on a regular basis. It's not just setting a target, it's report on that target. And by reporting transparently on that target, creating the confidence on the finance sector to really invest in circular solutions. So again, these pieces that I mentioned could all be enabled by the Global Plastics Treaty, and again, reinforced by non-policy interventions such as multi-stakeholder discussions and initiatives such as CO Solutions or the Global Plastic Action Partnerships and many others. Also, creating trust on the consumer so that they understand why their packaging is changing and understand that there is no that they can trust in these new types of packaging, and then create awareness so that they understand why this packaging is changing and be part of this transition, as we heard before, by actively demanding for circular solutions in their consumption patterns. So again, the treaty has a very important role to play. Again, we are a negotiation away, hopefully, to get a legally binding instrument ready and effective to tackle plastic pollution. So again, just to keep in mind that there are circular economy solutions, circular business models being implemented and profitable. What they need is additional conditions and additional incentives to scale. And again, we have this opportunity in hands, the Global Plastics Treaty, where all of us, either directly or indirectly, play a role. And it's important to really push for these conditions to be present in the final document. So again, this was the conclusions from this report with respondents from across the world. You can now take your phones and download through the QR code to take a look in the report later in the day or when you're back to your countries or back home. And now, after hearing this, I would say, global perspective from the business sector, I would like to now come to the table and discuss these points with local stakeholders that are also implementing circular business solutions and that are also enabling already the conditions that I just mentioned in this presentation. So I'll pass to the table. I think it's, yeah, okay. So now at the table. I will start by a discussion with the private sector, with the business sector. I mentioned them a lot. The report is all about them, but really to understand actual examples of how these circular business models are being implemented on the ground. So again, I have Mr. Arsha Reddy from Indorama Ventures and Bitang Ekananda from Alner, and I will ask you exactly the same question. First, to introduce how your companies are approaching circularity. So what sort of solutions are you implementing? The challenges that you face and overcome, and how do you see the treaty really being an enabler and to overcome further challenges that you are experiencing or that you see that will rise up in the short term? So I'll start with you, Mr. Harsha, with the perspectives from Indorama.
Yeah, thanks, Pedro, for your opening remarks, and it's excellent points that you mentioned. Not sure how many of you are aware of Indorama Ventures. I see very few hands, not a surprise, but you must have used a water bottle to drink, mineral water, that bottle probably from our product. The seatbelt that you wear while you are driving, the seatbelt probably made from our product, the airbags in your car, tire cards, the baby diapers, femcare products, the hand sanitizers, agri-based products or home care products, many products that we produce probably used in your daily life. Who we are, Indorama Ventures. Indorama Ventures, before getting into the point, it is important to introduce who we are and then why it matters for Indorama Ventures about this global plastic treaty and circularity, etc. Indorama Ventures is a global chemical company. We have operations in 33 countries with 140 plus manufacturing sites into 3 core business segments: combined PET, fibers, integrated oxides, and derivatives. We have around 26,000 plus employees, $15.6 billion revenue for the last financial year. As I mentioned, one of the core products is a PET in our operations. And there are several concerns or several challenges to recycle the PET. Since I am from a PET industry, my talk would be more on PET circularity. Indorama Ventures is one of the pioneers in circularity. We started our sustainability journey way back. Of course, it is from the beginning of our company, but more systematically from 2011, 2012 onwards, when we started with respect to PET recycling by acquiring one entity in Europe. Since 2011, we recycled until today 127 billion bottles. I repeat, from 2011 until today, we recycled 127 billion bottles. We have a target to recycle 100 billion bottles per year. While it took almost 12, 13 years to recycle 100 plus billion bottles, our target is to recycle 100 plus billion bottles per year by 2030, for which, in terms of capacity, we committed to establish recycling capacity to the extent of 1.5 million tons by 2030 and 750,000 tons by 2025. 2030, 1.5 million tons, 2025, 750,000 tons. Against this 750,000 tons of commitment, we already, in terms of capacity, achieved to the extent of 690 plus 100,000 tons of recycling infrastructure already built across 13 plus countries with 22 plus operations, recycling operations, I would say. In addition to this recycling commitments, we are also committed to bring down our carbon footprint, which most of you are aware and concerned about climate protection, etc., global warming potential, the change in climate and environment that we see in our daily lives. So carbon footprint reduction, energy reduction, renewable electricity, waste diversion, these are all some of the targets that we have. Coming to the point, what are the challenges for a private sector, a company like Indorama Ventures in circularity? I would say, as the speakers before mentioned, collection is one of the major challenges. Reverse collection engineering is one of the solutions that world needs. We aim to recycle every bottle that comes to our plant. We are into PET business. Our PET product is converted into PET bottles. We aim to recycle every single bottle that comes to our plant. So collection system helps us to address this problem. Policies and regulations is another challenge. As the speakers well mentioned in the previous discussion and earlier, policies and regulations, especially EPR, is one of the solutions the world is looking for. EPR, not just EPR, but well-designed EPR is one of the solutions that world needs. Technologies, yes, this is one of the important challenges that we have and also solution that we expect to have. Today whatever we are doing is a mechanical recycling. We are looking for chemical recycling, chemical or advanced recycling technologies. Why is it required? Why can't mechanical recycling meet the target or the ambition that we have? We all know bottle-to-bottle grade recycling will help us to get better revenues and better use of the product, more importantly. With mechanical recycling, if you use colored bottles into this mechanical recycling, that recycled PET is not usable for food grade applications. So that is the elimination with respect to the mechanical recycling. If you go for advanced recycling, then whatever the bottles, the colored bottles or food grade trays and everything, if you put into this recycling process, it breaks down that PET into molecules and that molecules into raw materials, then you can use this for any product that you want to. So that's the kind of technology we are looking for. Not only the technology we are aspiring, but also we are working towards this technology. We set up a separate entity, IVIH, Indorama Ventures Investment Holdings, with subject matter experts working closely with the technology providers, solution providers, not only with respect to the technologies, but also for bio-based feedstock that we are looking for. We aim to consume 1/3 of our feedstock coming from bio-based feedstock by recycle and bio-based feedstock by 2030. Another challenge that we see is well mentioned earlier, mindset. The cultural change that we want is very important. Say, we want to be healthy, and we go to a farmer, or you go to a farmer and ask him, you supply me organic food, I want to be healthy. But you ask them, you supply organic food at the cost of inorganic food cost. Is it viable? Can the farmer sustainable in the long term? That is not. So the recycled PET with respect to the cost, it's higher than virgin PET. It is the mindset that one should have. What is it important? And also the consumers should play a role in accepting these changes. If you see a product with circularity and a non-circularity, the circularity product could cost a little more. So you should tend to pay a little extra, as we all should do that. So these are all the few challenges and solutions. I can come back with more points once we come back with the talking points.
Thank you, Mr. Harsha, for your comments. And again, I think they add a lot to what I just presented from the report. I think these points on technology, again, reinforcing well-designed EPRs, the problem of collection, and I think it was not mentioned by a lot of respondents, so I think it's a very good point. You need the material to continue your operation. You have the means, but you need the material and the change of the public mindset. So, Bitang, on your side, so again, exactly the same questions. Explain a little bit to the audience what Alner has been doing, and again, how do you see the challenges and how you have been overcoming them, but what is there yet to be overcome, and how a treaty can also support you in expanding and scaling your solution?
Thank you, Pedro, for the question. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Bintang. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alner. Alner means alternative container. So basically, we are a startup based in Jakarta, Indonesia, that is providing consumer with daily necessities from soaps to rice, cooking oil, those kind of products in returnable and refillable packaging system. So we try to offer customers with alternative when they can return or refill the packaging when they finish the products so that we can prevent packaging from being waste in the first place. We work with some of FMCG companies, both local and global companies, to get the products. For example, we work with Unilever Indonesia to provide their home care and personal care products in refillable containers. So that means we work with local retailers like mom and pop stores, where these retailers are providing those products in big jerry cans, and then consumers can go there, refill with their own containers. We take back the jerry cans, clean them, and then supply back for refill. Other option is that consumer can opt for home deliveries for those products. We currently still operate within Jakarta area, and then when they finish the products, in the next purchase, they can swap the empty container with the filled ones. And then same process, we will clean them, sanitize, and then refill those container again and again before it gets recycled. So we've been working for 4 years now, since 2020. We've seen increasing demand for consumers. For example, the consumer behavior is surprisingly accepting the solution. For example, more than 80% of the container are returned. And we've been reusing almost 100,000 containers. So this means, based on our calculation, we prevent almost 1 million single-use packaging. And for your note that in Indonesia, most of the daily needs are sold in flexibles, like pouch and sachets, which are made from multi-layers. And I think we all know that it's a little bit hard for recycling them at this point in time. So we are thinking that we want to provide alternative solutions for the consumers and businesses. The first challenge that we see, probably you'll expect the consumer behavior, but I've said before that the return rate is surprisingly for us is quite promising. We aim for more than 90% return rate, but we're just getting started. And currently the main challenges, I'll share two main challenges. First is that we need more FMCG companies to work with us, because the familiar products that is currently available in the market will help consumers adopt faster for this refillable or returnable container system. Even though we're already working with Unilever, there are more and more both local and global companies that is able to work with us, and we're quite open to discuss on how we can launch those products in returnable packaging system. Number two is that Alner is currently still in the seed stage of the funding. We've been very fortunate that we received some of grants from international organizations to support the operations up until now. But to replicate the solution in other cities in Indonesia as well as in other regions in Southeast Asia, including cities like Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and Manila, will need more investment to replicate. And we're again also open to discuss on how this solution is actually first in terms of unit economics is very positive, as well as on the way to the profitability path. I'll stop there, Pedro. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bintang. And again, I think it's very important to have you both in this panel, because again, it's a combination of solutions from upstream to downstream, and we need them all to really make this transition. And And again, to your points, Bintang, on more collaboration and the flow of finance for scaling, again, reinforcing some of the, I would say, pain points that we heard from other business. So again, it's common challenges. And before passing to the government perspective, just to reinforce two numbers. So it's on one side, 100 billion bottles recovered, and on the other side, it's 1 million single-use plastics avoided. So again, I think it's very important to highlight these numbers because the solutions already exist and they are already being implemented in practice and solving the problem. So we are not starting the journey today, we just need to run faster to overcome this challenge. So I'll pass now to the government perspective. And again, as Clemence mentioned in the video, we have been working with Indonesia and Vietnam at the Global Plastic Action Partnership almost since the beginning of our initiative. And we have witnessed the progress of both countries, again, in these bold decisions to really move forward with the circular economy agenda for plastics. So I will like to ask you both, and starting with Mr. Tuan from Vietnam, again, to provide the audience a perspective on what Vietnam has been doing and what it's planning to do to reinforce its commitment to a circular economy transition for plastics. And also, one of the points mentioned in this report that we launched was the enforcement. I didn't mention it in the presentation, but most of the respondents said that sometimes the legislation and regulation exists, but what misses is the actual enforcement of these regulations. So also to give us a perspective on how, in this case, starting from you, Mr. Tuan, Vietnam is also enforcing these regulations and laws.
Thank you, Pedro. Good afternoon, delegate from different countries and organizations. It's quite a privilege for me to talk to you from the government perspective on how to unlock the circular business model. I think in the context of the triple planetary crisis, especially the challenge from the plastic pollution, the countries like Vietnam, we see that the circular economy is just a solution to ensure or to maintain the environmental, climate, and resources security. Just because we see that the circular economies play a very important role in to reduce the exploitation of the resources and also to maintain what we have already in the loop, so we can use this, I mean, just multiple times for that. And that's why we put the circular economy in the country development orientation. And we also introduced in our registration system. And what we see that the registration is not enough. So it means that we have to involve and engage the different stakeholders in that process. That's why, as you mentioned, Vietnam and Indonesia, the two countries in Southeast Asia, we have the NPAP program, and we try to engage different stakeholders in the process, try to address the plastic pollution and also to promote circular economy. And from the government side, we also legalized the regulation on the EPR, the extended producer responsibility, to just one way to promote the circular model. And also my ministry is a focal point to develop the National Action Plan on Circular Economy, and we already circulate to other ministry for their comment and input and submit to the Prime Minister for approval. And I hope that the decision on the National Action Plan will be approved very soon. So it will be the basis or foundation for different stakeholders, and especially for the private sector to get involved in circular economy. And also we just want to incentivize private sector and other organizations in recycling plastic. It means just the it will give like something like the tax and also for the subsidies for those who get involved in the business. And of course, we, like other countries, we already have the roadmap to ban the single-use plastic. And we hope that it will gradually change the habit of the consumption of the plastic products in the way that the more responsibility. Just because we know that as you mentioned, the enforcement, sometimes it's quite challenging for the government to promotion the enforcement of legislation. And that's why we just want to get involved in all the stakeholders in the process. And we try to make the law or regulation just quite easy to implement and also to adapt with the green context of the countries and also for the just the international context. Here we are in the process of negotiating an instrument on the plastic pollution. So just the engagement of the government and also stakeholder like private sector is very crucial. And I totally agree with the previous speaker talking about the policies and also financial access. It's important to address the problem to promote the circular economy.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Tuan. And thank you also for the good news of the National Action Plan for Circular Economy. We hope it is approved soon. It's another step in the right direction. And I think an important point that you mentioned is, again, for all the other non-governmental stakeholders, they cannot look at the government and expect that they define policies and regulations by themselves. It needs the consultation, and it's great to see how open Vietnam has been and continues to be in terms of consulting the different stakeholders, including the private sector, in the development of these laws and regulations. Thank you very much. And I'll pass over to you, Mr. Ujang Sidik, from Indonesia, again, to let us know what Indonesia has been implementing in terms of policy and regulation, what the challenges have been, and also, again, your perspective on how to overcome the challenges of enforcement of those regulations and laws.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, it's my pleasure to join this meeting. Yeah, in the government perspective, I think this is, yeah. First, I in the same inline position with the report, because there are, yeah, at least for the government perspective, there are two main challenges how to implement this, to unlock the circular business. And the first one, of course, the regulation, the legislation framework should put on the first place. And the second one is how to implement the non-government, non-policy instrument, like how to collaborate with another stakeholders, the main stakeholders in Indonesia. So if we are talking about the circular business, I think Indonesia, we have been practicing circular business for many years. Maybe 40 years ago, we already practice this circular business. For example, we are still practicing the how to sell and buy the second-hand goods or the used goods. We are still practicing here in Jakarta or another big cities. We are still practicing this one. And also back to 40 years ago, we start to collect and recycle a PET bottle at the moment, and now it's becoming the big business, the big value of the plastic industry in Indonesia. It started 40 years ago. So yeah, the problem is, as always mentioned in this report, is how to scaling up, how to replicate this business, because all that business is still on the like an informal business, not like a formal business. So the challenge for government is how to make it a good business, a good opportunities, and also replicate to the big business. The second thing I want to say is about myself. I myself is working on how to put the producers, how to put the business responsibility into deal with this plastic problem in Indonesia. I work since 2010 to discuss with the big producers in Indonesia how they can contribute to make a solution that we are facing now in the context of plastic waste. So since 2010, I'm with the big producer in Indonesia how to make a solution of the plastic pollution. And yeah, of course, in 2019 is I think it's the big momentum for us. Actually, we put the regulation on the producer responsibility in Indonesia in form of the ministerial regulation. Actually, in this regulation, we mandate the producer to responsible for their waste that's come from the product and packaging. So we put at the first time we start to put the foundation of the producer responsibility in Indonesia. However, we are facing the big challenge to implement this regulation, as Pedro mentioned about how to enforce effectively this regulation. We of course still working hard how to implement, how to enforce this regulation, because in the context of the regulation, I think so many business, so many producers still thinking that this regulation is still weak regulation. They call it still weak because if they do nothing, what is the sanction? What is the implication for them? So this is our biggest challenge actually now, how to enforce this regulation. So in this context, we are now on discussing with internally in Ministry of Environment and Forestry actually how to enforce this regulation. And we are thinking, we already conducted the study how to improve this our regulation, how to make it more powerful regulation to implement this policy or this instrument. So we are now working on that actually in the context how to make it powerful regulation. And but luckily, I think based on the regulation, was on the existing regulation, actually, I can say that we succeed to put the new business opportunity. Like Bintang already working on this under actually, it is one element of our regulation already put on our regulation how to make like new opportunity business in the context of the reuse business, because in Indonesia we cannot depend on recycling, because recycling is not sufficient to solve this problem. The downstream approach is not sufficient for us. to tackle this problem. So in this our regulation, we already put that we have to move forward, to move upward, to going to upstream policy. So that's why in our regulation, we already put that not only downstream approach that we want to implement in Indonesia, we put the upstream approach. For example, is in our regulations already put in the principle of reduce. First R is how the producers, the FMCG especially, to put the product into the market that that at least they can put the product with the least of the waste that come from product or packaging, or how they can sell the product, put the product into market without packaging. And Bintang already mentioned about how the big player in Indonesia already start to put the product without packaging using the reuse model and reuse and repair model. This is the upstream approach that we are going implement from now and the future actually. And the next things about we also provided provided the regulation how to push the producer, the business to not only think about the recycling, but also think how to redesign the packaging that can be returnable and reusable. We push the business to do like we did a long time ago, maybe 14 years ago. We did that. Most of our necessity is delivered by the reusable and returnable packaging, and we want to go back to this model business in Indonesia. Hopefully, like Anna that already now doing with this reuse and repair business, it's the good model, the best practices that can be reflected in Indonesia. Of course, another challenge is as when we put the regulation about to solve this, to stop and to combat the plastic pollution is of course non-policy is the how we should build the coordination within our line ministry, because when we are talking about the product, for example, the license or the permit to put the product into the market is not belong to us. It's belong to another ministry. There, at least we have two ministries that responsible to make a license or to give a license or permit to put the product into the market. We have a Ministry of Health and also the Food and Drugs Administration Agency. So we, of course, have to collaborate with them closely, because if we want to, yeah, I think it is very important. It's very crucial for us. If we are talking about the product into put into the market, it should be meet the criteria that we have already put in our regulation, like for how to redesign to make it more more easy to recycle, or how to put the product with packaging that is designed for the beginning for the reusable or returnable packaging, and you have to talk with them You have to talk to them both.
Thank you very much.
This our experience actually, Pedro, that we are already in this right now.
Very good. No, thank you very much, Mr. Sirik, and again, and for reminding us that you have been doing circularity since at least 40 years ago, and great to hear also from Indonesia, also the focus not only downstream but upstream, but again, the challenges that you are facing in the enforcement and the challenges also in the coordination between the different parts of the government. And I think, again, you already have done so much, but it's still a long way to complete this journey. And I hope, again, this multi-stakeholder approach, and we hear from Vietnam, we hear from Indonesia, this coordination with the private sector and other stakeholders is very important to really help each other to move towards a circular economy in a faster pace and at more scale. So now that we heard from the private sector and government, we will close the journey in the finance sector. Circulate Capital has been a pioneer investing in the circular economy and in the circular economy for plastics more specifically, starting here in the Southeast Asia region. So with that experience, Regula, please tell us a little bit how everything started, how is it going, and what are the challenges that you are facing, and how the treaty can really support in overcoming those challenges.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear participants. I was just reflecting on the Sea of Solutions. The first one, I think it was in 2019 when we just started, and reflecting on what has happened since. So let me maybe share a little bit with what we're doing and put that into context, and then exactly share with you also what I see, what kind of opportunities I see with the plastic treaty. So for those who are not familiar with what Circular Capital does, we are an impact investment firm based in Singapore, and we really focus in preventing plastic pollution by doing so by investing into the circular economy in emerging markets. The majority of our capital goes into building sustainable supply chains in the plastic recycling industry, meaning retrieving the material, recycling the material to bring it back into the circular economy, away from the typical linear economy. And then a second part is investing in new innovation, which allows us to replace plastics where it makes sense or have reuse models put in place. When we started mainly with corporate investors, such as the largest fast-moving consumer goods companies and companies in the plastic supply chain. The institutional investors were bystanders. They would not invest at that point in 2019 because it has previously been an industry where pretty much no one invested in. And we really wanted to showcase that this is doable by finding these companies out there in the emerging markets in South and Southeast Asia and provide them the capital they need to grow. And beyond that, also provide them with the technical know-how, with connections they need to grow from a small, mid-sized company to a large international player. Since then, we have invested, out of the $250 million we raised since 2019, we invested in 17 companies in emerging markets, the majority in South and Southeast Asia. And these are often family businesses, I mentioned, either in collection and sorting of material of plastics or in recycling of plastics. Now, with showcasing that this is an investable space, we were able to attract more and more capital, which now we also have institutional investors on board, like some of the largest DFIs and family offices and companies who started seeing the opportunity in investing in plastic recycling and the circular economy in general. So from where we started, where we had to showcase there is evidence-based track record, you can make money, you find targets. We are now 5 years forward and we invested in these 17 companies as we have seen. A challenge we see is obviously the regulatory framework, and the plastic treaty very much can help here in harmonizing the environment we're operating in, as plastic doesn't stop at the borders of a country. And then also it can help in, as we heard also before, create predictability. Because ultimately institutional investors need predictability. And we heard that before from the gentleman from the EU. If you as an investor do not understand, I cannot assess the risks inherited in the investments you're pursuing because of the regulatory framework, which is patchworked, then that makes it very difficult for them to invest in. And the more they have an understanding and the more we have a harmonized environment in respect to policies, I trust and I know the more capital will enter the market. More than 160 financial institutions and associates have been signatory to the finance statement to the plastic treaty. Now, interesting that these 160 plus signatories have assets under management of 15 trillion. Now, we heard that we need 15.4 trillion in the next couple of years to actually tackle the plastic and moving it into the circular economy. So if these institutional investors could allocate just a part of their assets towards the circular economy and plastic pollution prevention by having a plastic treaty which would exactly provide the harmonization and the predictability, then I really think we could make a tremendous progress. Because we have a $250 million right now assets under management to be deployed. But when we look at the capital gap we have, and as we heard from where we are, and a couple of players in the industry together with us, which do that voluntarily, to where we need to go, then that is really the missing middle, the capital gap we have to fill. And another point, and finally, what I heard also interestingly from your case studies, of these 50 case studies you presented, right, that 2/3 of them are funded by our for-profits. They're funded by the private sector, but only I think 25% are actually at scale. So the rest, the 75, are small businesses, which we heard from Alner, which have tremendous interesting opportunities, but they don't have the capital. So I think there we really need to bring in the institutional capital by again harmonizing, bringing the treaty or signing the treaty, and then having the right playing level field. In that sense, and as a closure, I see our work as Circular Capital almost as a voluntary financial intermediary who kickstarted with others this initiative to showcase that this is indeed a space, an industry where the private sector, financial institutions can come in and generate a tremendous positive return, bottom line financially, but also from a social and environmental impact perspective.
Very good. Thank you very much, Regula. I think it's a great note to end this fantastic panel. I think, again, Circular Capital showing that this is an investable space. I think this is very important. And thank you for reminding us that we have these 160 plus financial sector institutions that match what we need to really achieve a circular economy for plastics. Again, we heard from private sector, from governments, from finance, what is needed. So we all know that what is needed. As we heard from Indonesia, the journey is not starting now. It started 40 years ago. What we need is to really scale the solutions that we are already implementing, and of course, add new ones through technology and innovation. And we have a great opportunity in hands that is called an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution that, fingers crossed, we hope that is signed very soon and that we can really accelerate this transition and scale and mainstream circular business models to tackle plastic pollution. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. And now just to a piece of information to you all. So now is lunchtime, and I need to look at my notes because I have something to tell you. So after lunch, there will be two sessions, one here and the other one on conference room number 4, that will, again, deep dive on the conversations that we heard in this morning. So the session 1 that will take place here is on redesigning for a circular plastics economy, and we will discuss how to discover the essential elements and stakeholders required to redesign the plastic system. And on room 4, very close to here, we will have the scaling, reuse, and refill. So we heard a little bit about Allner. We would heard about other strategies for success, and we will learn from practical examples of different stakeholder groups in overcoming some of the challenges in scaling up reuse and refill strategies. And we will come back at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Just a few points for announcement. We have some lost and found items. So if you're missing a Thai national ID or a cell phone, please approach one of the organizers. For plenary session 4 moderator and speakers, could we invite you to please proceed to conference room 4 for a quick alignment? Thank you.